Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or fact-based reality. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. K. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're doing the reunion of Love is Blind. One last Love is Blind installment.
Yes, from this weird Denver season of these weird, troubled people. That's all I have to say about that. Man,
Totally
all of them need therapy. We're not sure that any of them got it. We were actually trying to figure that out. But, you know, I think everyone could benefit, certainly, on this cast.
Also on Earth, too. So, like, that's the bonus. It's like, already we could all benefit from it. And then bonus on top of that, some of these folks really have some unprocessed stuff going on.
On Earth, therapy needed.
Mm-hmm.
In Denver, in the dating scene, maybe twice a week. And I'm not a twice a weeker, but, you know, that might just be what's necessary at this juncture.
Up a little bit for a little bit of time. Yeah, it could be a temporary thing. Who knows?
And the pressure of fame, you know, that's tough on people.
That's real. Like, Dr. Ray and I have been thinking about maybe, like, if we were to do a course at the doctoral level about reality TV, and, like, one of the versions of it is, like, what happens to people who go on reality TV, because that's a thing, you know, and people could treat, I guess, more and more, right? There's so many shows that take all sorts of people right off the street. So there's lots of people that could easily become famous from reality TV very quickly, and it could be good to know how to do that.
Yeah.
Therapy.
And what to keep in mind and what developmental stages, or I can imagine there's like a peak fame, and then there's probably a time where you're trying to reach that same peak, I would imagine, like post show. I don't know. It's really hard to, like, I feel like when it's the moment of the people who are really in the conversation, it's their moment. But then once that goes away, I don't know how that gets sustained. That's hard.
No, exactly. I think it's become, I think, a new thing too, where people are trying to, because there are other options, it's no longer like you have to go on one and done. Like it used to be like you were on Bachelor, then you're done. You can't go on any other shows, especially Bachelor, because they were like very uptight about it. But it used to be that. And then now they're able to go on all sorts of other stuff. Like they can go on Perfect Match. They can go on The Traders. You know, so now it's like they do try to sustain an actual career in reality TV in a brand new way. So I totally agree. There must be some depression if it's not working out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. Tough in all elements. But oof, I felt for this cast this season. Man.
Yeah, truthfully.
A lot to get into.
Yeah, because the other version of that thing that must be tough is like seeing yourself for like the first time in some ways. You know, it's like seeing yourself as other people see you, because it's not even really as other people see you. It's like as the producer sees you, and then on top of that, it's other people's interpretation of that as well.
Yeah. I kind of felt for Nick, actually, which I wasn't expecting, but it's clear that he watched back and really like saw some things about himself and felt sad about it, like genuinely, and maybe is working on it. I don't know. But, you know, that it was probably hard to hear that none of the guys liked him and that his personality was found to be calculating and off-putting. Like that sucks.
Yeah, totally. It reminded me a little bit of what Edmund was going through too, where he's like, I'm not trying to be manipulating. It's like, I think that Nick's not trying to be calculated in the way that he says things. He is a little robotic, so I think that probably goes against him a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, not that he is calculated, it's that the way he talks is robotic. Yeah. It is.
Exactly. A bit shut down, for sure.
Bit shut down. A little bit of a flat affect there. So, what a fun thing we have now, which is first we're going to do our studies, and then we're going to do our check-ins, because those are a new order of events. So stick around for like all of the things. But before we get to our check-ins, and then also, of course, going through our segments with the reunion. We're going to do our segments today, so we'll do a quick kind of overview. This is going to be an hour-long episode. Quick overview of the different sections of the reunion with our segments. Our 6 segments that are psychology-related, standard 6 that we'll go through. So first, we're going to do reality check. Reality check is when we talk about a study that we think is of interest in some way. Could be related to the episode we're talking about, or just psychology and something interesting for you all that we think might be of interest, or just of interest to us, frankly. So I love it. Hit me. What did you choose?
I was curious. I thought it was really cool how Jordan, first of all, Jordan was looking good. I have to say, I was like crushing a little bit. I was like, you look good, sir. He does have a very kind neurodivergent face. Maybe that's what, now that he was disclosing his ADHD left and right, I was like, oh, that's why I kind of liked you, because you're neurodivergent. And he just has one of those friendly faces.
Yes.
Imperfect person in practice in a lot of ways. But what I liked about him this episode was when he was talking about diabetes and kind of correcting some myths about diabetes. And so I looked up a study. This was a study that was then published by APA called Diabetes Causal Attributions, Pathways to Stigma and Health, by Persky, Costable, and Talak. And this was just talking about like internalized stigma in folks with diabetes. And internalized stigma is the idea that the ideas that people have in society become internalized by you. For example, there are a lot of messages out there that people with diabetes are lazy, that they don't eat well, that they, somehow brought this disease on themselves. So this study is doing like fancy statistics to see what this looks like in people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And they found that path analyses, one for each diabetes type, revealed overall patterns linking causal attributions to internalized stigma and to self-blame, which were linked to ratings of reduced self-care, increased symptoms, and reduced life satisfaction. However, it sounds like whereas higher genetic causal attributions were attributed or associated with more self-blame and stigmatization for type 1, the attributions were, oh, this is interesting, associated with less self-blame for type 2 diabetes. So I think that deserves more exploration, but it seems like type 1 diabetes, where there is that strong genetic link, there tends to be more self-blame for whatever reason, which, we could explore why that is, but it's certainly interesting.
Oh, I love that. I could, just as like a one foray into a maybe why, I could see like, how when we have like a disorder of some sort, we somehow feel like, because we don't have anything to blame. And so in some ways it becomes easiest to blame ourselves and be like, I did something wrong to have this, so that then we feel like we're in control of it somehow, because the truth is we're not in control of it and it is out of our control. And so that in that way, having the disorder and not having been in control of it makes us more self-blaming as a way of trying to get in. Whereas like if they feel like it actually was their fault, because it's not, it's not still in some many ways, but even in the type 2 where they feel like maybe they did play a part in it with the sugar intake, they can almost blame themselves less, because they're like, like it sort of feels less like out of their control. And so it's less pertinent. It's less intense of a need to self-blame as a way of coping. Yeah. And then also I was thinking like the way that society blames everybody with diabetes regardless. I could also see that sort of being an extra thing that like folks with type 1 internalize, right? Turn towards themselves too.
Right. Yeah. Not understanding the nuances. It's hard. And it was cool to see Jordan like talk about that, and also like talk about the person who said whatever they said and say, he reached out to apologize to me, to like give him grace, which I thought was cool. I liked it. I thought it was a good look for him. Yeah.
And I liked that he was like, I forgave him day one, so like y'all can too.
Yeah.
And I like that as well. That did seem to be a theme, which I did appreciate, sort of like we can all give each other a break here. It's been a theme on lots of reunions of lots of shows, sort of like if we've forgiven each other, can you all please too? Because I think the bullying is too much. It's at a high pitch.
So we can't even have the dramatic reunions we like, because everyone is entering the chat and being too awful. So be less awful and you'll get more interesting drama.
Exactly. We can let them be mad at each other because no one else was mad at them for them.
Let's have fun with this again and not say awful things to people, like going for the jugular.
Exactly. Make reunions fun again.
I like it. I love it.
Matha. No, wait.
Mhm.
Murpha.
MRFA. This is the
Murpha.
kind of acronym related to agains that we like, that we want
hmm
in this
hmm
country.
Exactly. It's like actual legitimate one that I can get behind.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. The other thing too, I think is good, like since you brought up internalized too, because this happens a lot with us too. We're like, and it's helpful because I often am like, well, it's implicit versus internalized because in certain cases, internalized means that you've turned something about your group towards yourself, and then in other ways, it
Mm.
means just that you've taken it on deck at all. Like you've taken on the conditioning of society, and so for like this, because it's not basically the only times I've really seen it be used the way it's like you turn it towards yourself has been about like racism, sexism, heterosexism, like the big ones,
Yeah, the
and
big isms.
ableism.
Yeah.
That it's sort of like you would say internalized sexism means that like I also believe that women are not as strong as men. Like there's a part of me as a woman, I also start to believe that. And so I like that this also gives us the opportunity to sort of clarify that too and bring that into the chat. I like it.
Absolutely.
All right, fabulous. Great study, very pertinent, and also really nice to be able to give us another moment to think about diabetes a little bit further.
Mhm.
So my study is like sort of more like an area of study, and then there's one study that I can like give as an example study. Um, and what I am specifically looking at, so I'm looking at the use of language as a way of reinforcing. So it's like covert bias. It's also called coded racial appeals and media euphemisms or just like euphemisms or whatever. So I'm going to talk about like what those are or whatever. But my main point is I noticed a couple times, but we'll talk about it as we go through the run through, that there were words used in a way that like is implicitly racist. And like they were used very subtly and in a way that like is easy to miss. And
Mhm.
so I learned a new term by looking this up, but there's something called dog whistle politics, which is where like um, somebody who, let's say like no, I won't say that. Let's say Trump is saying certain things to the audience, and that people who are attuned to racism pick up on it, and like they're aware that that's use of that language is racist, but the public is not. They're just like not attuned to that, so they're not aware of it. It's also part of white privilege, I would say, if it's racism in this case. You don't have to be attuned to it in the same way, and so it's called dog whistle politics because it's like the high enough pitch that some people catch it, like dogs catch it. They catch a whistle at a certain pitch.
Ooh,
Isn't that good? I really like
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
Right. And I think that dog whistle is exactly like, and maybe not politics in this case, but the dog whistle impact, I think, is exactly what's happening here, where it's like certain words were used that like should be fine to use with anyone, but they are, and they are fine in certain contexts, but they're not fine in the context that you're talking to a person of color or about a person of color. And so then that makes it racist. And so I was looking into that kind of a group of studies related to the dog whistle piece. Like obviously euphemism is where like a word stands in for things. Like we've started using cultural to mean race, like cultural differences, but we really mean racial differences. So why don't we just say racial? As an example of that. And then covert bias in dialect is that there are significant prejudices against certain types of dialects as well, and the ways that we say things. So these are all like forms of similar types of studies that have been happening. And this is the really cool part, which is that the studies recently that they've been doing about this kind of racism and bias have been using AI. Because what they're doing
Wow.
is they're having AI train, and what does the AI learn? And what it's learning is learning off of us. Like, so it actually we've been able to take out the explicit racism from AI learning, but it's picking up and exacerbating the implicit learning that we have about
Wow.
racism. And so it's making decisions that are implicitly racist. So like AI is learning things
Man.
based on dialect. It will make decisions about intellect, or based on dialect, it'll make decisions about criminality. And so it's making decisions that are totally false based on our own false stereotypes. And so that's when the type of study they've been doing in linguistics. I think that's super, super cool. So just one example, it was at Stanford University. They partnered with National Institutes of Health in 2024, and they had a study where they were looking at covert racism through stand-in words, which is what I'm talking about as well. And they found that while artificial intelligence language models have decreased overt racist stereotypes, they've developed and amplified the more subtle forms, particularly through linguistic racism. So I also was going to okay, there's also linguistic microaggressions, which are like subtle, like use of language to make subtle, microaggressions, which we know what that is. We've talked about that before. And also, by the way, a mental health checkup that you can get on our Patreon if you pay $5 a month, measly $5. There's also
Measly.
implicit. Yeah, measly. I've started just
Very
like liking
measly.
that too. I put it on the video version of the episode. I was like, measly 5.
I love it.
So then the study, just as an example, and this is the one I believe that's from Stanford, but it's from 2024. And it says AI, no, this is not the same one, this is a different one. AI generates covertly racist decisions about people based on their dialect. Rude. And it's by Hoffman, Kaluri, Jarofsky, and King. 2024 in Nature is the name of the journal. So I definitely recommend looking more into that, and just in general looking into these studies. I think it's such an interesting line of way of looking at this, but it's also to reveal the point that like we are all guilty of this, and like we see it all over the place. And it is a part where it's like I often find myself trying to explain why a certain thing is racist in this context, but not that context for folks that are not tuned into racism. Where it's like sort of like a really classic example is using the word angry when you're talking about Black folks. It's like that is a totally different word in that context than using it about white folks because of the history of seeing Black folks as angry. And so in that case, it is pulling on your implicit bias most likely. Either way, even if it's not, it doesn't matter because it is. It's like there is no proving that it's not based on your implicit racism. So we avoid that and should. And then this is also saying that after the civil rights movement is when racism in particular became more of a subtle character in our language. And so they've been looking at how over time there's racial linguistic stereotypes. Racial linguistic stereotypes. That was the last term I wanted to share. So the dog whistle effect, it happens twice in the episode that we'll talk about. And so, yeah, that's my study. And also just cool because it's AI again, doing its thing, doing something good for us about racism because it's doing something bad.
Yeah, well, I think what it shows, because I think white people get so caught in like, what does this mean about me? This means I'm bad. Look at these computers who are taking in the same information that we do all the time. They are becoming racist. Okay. So this is a bigger problem than you, I, Joe down the street.
Our parents, our school. Yeah,
exactly. It's not that. So I actually think it's helpful to
take
the focus where it should be, which is on racist systems. Unfortunately, those conversations are hard to have right now when DEI is just being erased from the planet. So we're in a weird spot. But I hope for people who don't like feeling villainized or as if they're a bad person, this helps you to realize that you're not. It's just kind of what happens.
It's in the air. It's in the water. It's not something you can avoid. And I think that's where like we'll often say we think everyone's racist because we are all racist, because we are all drinking the same water, breathing the same air. And so it's unavoidable that we'll be conditioned to have implicit bias. And so rather than seeing racism as a dirty word, embracing, in a way embracing so that then you can change it. Like embracing the fact that, yes, we are all racist. So let's do something about it instead of being like, oh, no, not me, not I.
I'm not a bad person. It's like, no, you're not. And this is an area for growth because you were conditioned in an environment, and this can happen to any of us and does all the time.
Yeah.
So let's work on it together.
Yes, exactly. And if it's so deep seated in us, it's obviously also going to take a long time to unseat it and to uncondition ourselves. And so that's why we also talk about anti-racism being a lifelong journey. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of our lives, and we're going to work on it. And the more we work on it, the more our children will be starting at a different point going forward.
Very well said.
I love this. I love that we hit the both like medical and ableism part and some racism parts. Really good reality check today, I say.
Yes.
So, what is on your heart and mind today, dear Dr. Ray, for your chicken?
What is on my heart and mind today? Oh gosh, what is on my heart and mind today? I got a new desk. We had gotten our floors refinished. And we had put all our furniture in the basement, and we didn't want to put back together the old desk because it was not a functional desk. It was a table. So we were like, we'll just get a new desk. We've been looking high and low, going to antique sales, looking on Facebook Marketplace. There was a sale on Wayfair, no free ads, but thank you, Wayfair. And we got this desk, and I put it together right before this episode, and I love it. And I'm very happy with my new desk. So that is my check-in. It's nice to have a new desk.
I love that. And we did our check-ins together off mic while Dr. Ray was doing that. And we both were talking about how it can be therapeutic to put together the puzzle that is the furniture, that is instructions, following instructions and doing the thing. I love it.
It's so fun. Yay. It's a ball.
Positive vibes. I love
What
that.
About you?
For mine, I will say that I got one of my cats back, which is to say that I have this fluff ball of a kitty cat that's not really mine. It's my bonus daughter's cat. And so when my bonus daughter moved out with her boyfriend, they took the fluffy cat with them, which was very sad, very, very sad. And then also very understandable. And I know I have to just stay in my lane about it. But then recently they've had a baby. And so the fluffer cat is competing for airtime. And so they had to like scoot the fluffer cat into somebody else's house. And I'm so jazzed because I get to babysit him again for a couple years
Yeah.
until little baby Nugget is ready to take on some cat snuggles. Basically, it's like they're getting too rough, you know. It's like, and you can't really trust them not to do something drastic because they're jello. So
Not
yeah.
a cat. Maybe a dog you could train it out of, but cats don't really work like that. That's hard.
Yeah, exactly. They were getting kind of aggressive. Like they kept sneaking into the bedroom that the little baby's crib was in. It's like, At one point, my bonus daughter came in there like in the morning. Luckily, the baby had been sleeping with her in her bed, but she came in there in the morning and the door was wide open. There was a cat in the crib, the empty crib, thankfully. And I found another cat on the floor. I was like, no, I don't think so. We're not doing
Like,
this.
I'm the baby.
I know, right? It's the fluff ball too. The fluff ball was the one that went into the crib. I was like, of course he did. He's so cute, fluffy. He was like a little baby. I know, excited. Yeah, so that was a nice thing to, start my week out, and I'm a happy camper. So, yay, new desks, new cats, and reunion time, baby. Okay, we're therapists. We're not your psychotherapist unless you're one of our clients. Thank you. Hi, friends. And that means that we will be undoubtedly talking about mental health stuff, but it doesn't mean that we're diagnosing folks because we'd have to do in-depth psychological assessment to be able to do that. So this is our warning to you all to not take this as therapist advice to you, nor is this therapist advice to them. So much as like we might play with that. We actually very much directly say, if this was my client, we'd give them this advice, but it doesn't mean that we actually have that right to give that advice to them because we haven't met them fully and assessed them. So this is just some associations we have with things and people.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. So we started with Meg's baby. Meg and Jordan kind of had their back and forth. I thought they handled their stuff well.
Yeah.
I thought both were very mature and kind to each other, which I thought was lovely. I really liked how they did it. Jordan also looked kind of good. I was kind of like, and they even said it on the reunion. It's not like it was just me. It's like,
no,
he was looking good. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's looking good.
And I would even venture to say, I don't think it was just that he was fit. Like they brought up that he looked fit, and I think he did look fit, but I think it was also like the suit looked, just wearing like dressed up, and he had, like you said, his face is a very kind face, and it felt very apparent in that setting. So I totally agree. I think it was the whole picture, if you will.
I think he may have also gotten his teeth fixed, which good on him.
Hey, I like
good
it.
on him.
Point. Yeah.
And also, his attitude was nice, except for when he and Joe start. Anytime Joe enters the chat with him, I just think Joe brings him down. But that's
it's troubling. It's a troubling vibe. I agree.
I'm like, ugh. It's like women, am I right? I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, it is like that. Yeah, because he often he was like, oh fuck, like Joe turned into like, oh fuck, and then he can't stop laughing, and it's like, and then Joe doesn't laugh, so then it looks like Joe comes out looking good, but he has now spurred that in Jordan, who takes the heat for how they've spurred it together, or how Joe spurred it in him. Yeah.
Who just wants to be accepted probably by Joe and then is bored because he has, as he said, I have ADHD. Like he's probably just looking for a high or something, but it wasn't cool.
Yeah, and laughter, sometimes you get the giggles, right? I think he's somebody who gets the giggles. I think ADHD can do that too. There are sometimes where I cannot stop, or I have a hard time not doing something with my face or whatever. So I can definitely relate. And I think there were times I think where he just was on his own, having a hard time not laughing. But I imagine most of the time, even though we didn't see it, probably most of the time was based on something Joe was saying that made him lose it. Yeah.
Fucker. But their beginning was good, so I was happy for them. Meg said she wanted to keep the pregnancy private. We saw her guy. I actually feel like they look like a good fit. He seems. Well, I don't know her that well, but looking at this guy, I'm like, he seems like her kind of guy. So I'm happy for them. I think
he also had warm face, I thought.
Yeah, he had a kind face. So I'm happy for them. And it seemed, and Jordan said some disgusting person told me on Instagram. And so he actually called Meg about it and she was transparent about it, which is great. And so, everyone was on the same page and he was able to go into the reunion prepared for that, which is good.
Yeah. Well, but like that is one of my segments, which I'm now realizing I didn't put on there, so you can't tell when I have a segment. So I'm just going to jump in when I do. But that was one of my segments, which is, I think, if producers were psychologists, is what I did for this part, because then it goes into this whole like song and dance about like who knew, who didn't know, who's surprised, why are they
Right.
surprised? Like, and Nick literally faked being surprised, because then he went on to be like, and we have pictures, like, you know, he literally goes, what? You're pregnant? You had a baby? And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, and I think we have some pictures for you. It's like, so Nick, you know what I mean? You fucking knew, so don't pretend. I think the pretending was like a step too far for me. But then it got worse, because then Vanessa was like, who knew? Who didn't know? Who did know? Ba-da-ba-da. And then like Allie had to admit that she was like particularly close with Megan, but like hadn't been, because Megan was clearly, now we know, is because she was having a baby. I also felt like I was annoyed that they made, maybe they didn't make her, but that basically that Meg was like, I felt like I wanted it to be private, so that it would be like this one thing was private between us, because clearly the producers told her to keep it private. Like, obviously they did. And they have to a little bit, right? Because ultimately it's like, if we knew she had a baby and then we're like, who's the dad? And it's like clear it's not, because we could find
Right.
out. We'd be like, oh, Jordan's here, he's not there, so like it's obviously not Jordan. Then it ruins the ending. And so like that does change our experience of the show. And we've seen this happen on Love Island, other shows where they've been like, don't tell anybody what's happening. Not Love Island, because that happens real time. But another one where this happened, that they like asked them to keep it down. Oh, Perfect Match. And what's the common denominator between Perfect Match and Love is Blind is that it takes them a fucking year to put the show out. And so because it's taken so long, so much can happen. And it actually, in my opinion, makes it unfair, because now Meg has had to keep that private for an entire effing year. And they finally gave her this opportunity. Like, this was her moment that she could tell everybody was during the show, which is why there were pictures that were like perfectly curated. It's why he was in the audience, you know, like, so it was like perfectly put together so that this could be her moment to tell everyone, because producers were probably like, please don't tell anyone so that it doesn't ruin the show. Don't even tell the rest of the castmates because they'll leak it. And then like, da-da. So that's why I found it so frustrating that then we're like, who knew? It's like, because y'all told her not to tell anybody. So like, of course, some people did not know on the cast. You said she shouldn't tell them. And then she had to be like, yeah, I kept it private. So I feel like not cool. Just be effing honest and be like, we told her not to tell people because we knew it would give it away.
Right.
Or give her another way to tell us about it, where she can say, you just don't know who the dad is, or like whatever, like just something, like, because it's awful to live that entire year for in literal hiding with her baby.
With your new baby. That's awful.
And her body and everything. Yeah. It's just so, I just like, don't like it. I don't like that this is a fallout of them taking a year to produce the damn show and put it out. Mm-hmm. And then I also don't like that they're hiding a very obvious producer antic.
That's a really good call. Yeah. And that she was playing ball. Yeah, probably.
Poor Megan. Yeah.
That sucks. God. I had my socio-political moment here. It was Jordan, again, I talked this to death already, so no need to harp on this further, but Jordan, like, providing education about diabetes and giving another castmate a pass for his misinformation about diabetes. I liked it. I thought it was good and informative, because I think a lot of people actually don't know the difference. I didn't know the difference until people in my life, like, had diabetes, and then I learned the difference. But I think if you don't, then you just don't know.
Right.
So,
and the overarching stereotype is to blame them for having it. Yeah. That's great.
Absolutely.
Good socio-po. Okay. So next up was the Patrick and Casey mess upon messes of all messes. It was just like a fucking mess. So the first like topic of conversation was the timeline. Like, what happened when you got home? Like, did she reach out to you? Did you reach out to her? And this has been coming up on other podcasts, so it was good to like just hear how they would put it on the reunion. Casey says that she texted him immediately, said, I'm thinking of you, and that Patrick wanted an immediate conversation. She was like, well, he wanted it right away, and like I wasn't ready, so I was like, maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, which is lukewarm. So like, no wonder he then took that to mean like she's not really wanting to continue a marriage. So she says that then on a Monday or Tuesday or before that, he said, let's just stay friends. And she also said that she said to him, I don't think you're going to get the response you want if we have a phone call right now. So that also tells him you're going to break up with me. Like, that's what he's hearing from you. So no wonder. So she acts like, though, that she was down to communicate and that he's the one that broke it off. It's like, but he was reading your cues, you know? So I think as an overall reflection, I don't think Patrick handled himself well in terms of responding. And then also was like patronizing at times, like very insecure, and like having a hard time in other ways. But he also, in those moments, like that would have been a really great way to put that, is just sort of say like, listen, like absolutely, because then they ask Patrick, does that match your timeline? And it does, because that is what happened. But like the way she narrated it made it sound one way, and if he had narrated it differently, it would sound a different way. And so I wish he'd been able to say like, right. He did sort of say, he was like, well, I figured that you weren't gonna want to make it work, so like I said, I was trying to make it easy on you by saying we can just be friends. But it's sort of like there was, I think, a way to sort of just be like, yeah, absolutely. And everything you said to me during the weekend showed me, including like, you're not going to get a response you want, that showed me that you were not going to want to make it work with me, which was exactly opposite to what you said when we were in wherever the fuck they were, away from on the honeymoon. And I can see that being so jarring. He literally said, you can keep the ring because we're going to make it work. And then they get there and she's like, not, she texted him right away to say, I'm thinking of you, but then that's it.
Yeah.
Like, so and he didn't know yet about the attractiveness thing. Yeah.
It sucked. It sucked because the way she acted was abysmal. And I have to say, his behavior during this interaction, I didn't love or like. When he was like, this is your moment. This is your moment. I was like, stop. And she even said, she's like, I don't think you get to tell me how to apologize. And then the whole, I want the ring back. It just was, I think it was the wrong approach. And his feelings are valid, right? Because he was mistreated. It just, I wanted it to stop, I think.
Yes.
So maybe that's my producer antic actually, is like, I wish that was shorter, because I think that took way too much time when actually other relationships deserve more time. When I think if we take it down to brass tacks, the both of them wanted more airtime. Yeah. And that's why they got engaged. And then Casey changed her mind, which is fair enough. Not really. The way it went down was tough, but like, it is what it is.
Yeah. No,
I hated watching that. It was not fun. It's that guy, that basketball guy was funny. He had some good banter.
Him. Yeah. But I also was like, enough about the fucking ring. Like, enough. It's not even, it's nobody's ring. It's fucking production's ring. Don't act like you don't know that, Nick and Vanessa. Don't act like someone's not going to get it back at the end of tonight, like, for the producer. And then, like, on top of that, it's like, I don't care. I don't care who has the ring. Just stop. It was so annoying. This is for the ring. This is for the ring. This is for the ring. Fuck off.
And I was confused why they got so much airtime, because I'm like, you two were on half the episodes and then you were gone. So can we just let this go? I didn't think.
I wonder if that's why, though.
Yeah. I didn't even think it was that juicy. Like, it was juicy, but it also, like, wasn't. So I just felt, like, confused.
Yeah. I could take the first 5 minutes of that and move the fuck on. Like, and it was like 15 minutes. I think 5 minutes, we're done. Like, enough of this. Enough said. Maybe less. And I totally agree. It was juicy for the first little bit, because I did want to hear her version of what happened right after, and he was honest, which I appreciate. That he was like, that is what happened. Like, and then I wish he did a little better explaining why it was different from his perspective, or like just why the narration could be different. But still, I felt like, she handled herself well because she was poised about it. But I also felt like I don't know, like I do think, the main thing is how she treated him on the show was really rough. And I do think, I know what I was going to say. When you're saying, like, why did they get so much airtime? Maybe it's because they only had so much on the show. Like, there was, like, like maybe the producers were like, well, we only got to see them in the pods, and, like, they should have gone to the honeymoon, and we never got to see them play that out. So, like, we'll spend all this time on it. Maybe. I think also Casey's the center of a shit ton of drama, like the stuff with Joe. And, so they're sort of like, oh, let's give that, like, the weight it needs first, so that we're not only talking about Casey in terms of Joe. It's like, I don't know. I didn't
feel invested in either of them to that degree. I felt bad for him, and then I sort of felt bad for her too, but in a different sort of way. I think she was
heckling. Yeah, she was prepared AF. I was going to say that too earlier, and I didn't go there exactly though. She was super prepared. Yeah.
And to her credit, she brought a gun to a knife fight. She was ready, and maybe that's not great, but. And maybe
I think that's fair. I think it's good she came prepared,
that gives Patrick maybe a break, because I don't think he was nearly as prepared as she was. I don't know.
No, exactly. So that's my segment called. Well, so first let me say there were two specific quotes that I sort of was like, huh. One was that she said, this is the one moment where Casey has lost me really during this portion where she lost me
Yeah.
was when she said that he was like, and then I saw you at the party, and she goes, and what did you say? And he goes, how's it going, ex-wifey? And she goes, right, probably not the time. Like, I was like, what? Who gives a fuck? Like, I think
I
he's trying
agree.
to, right, like, he's trying to break ice. Like, it was almost like
Right.
she was trying to like get him, she's like, gotcha. Like, I brought up what you said in that moment. Who cares that he said that? So that to me like really lost me on that moment and obviously like didn't play well. I hated the fact she was getting heckled. Like enough. We don't need to be like liar. Like it's like enough.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Let her just fucking have her fucking thing. They obviously
Yeah.
cut that out, by the way. You could tell that the people were saying more than what they showed us they said because of the way she was reacting and that it went so
Oof.
quickly to her being like, why are people trying to tell me how to feel? You know? So I feel like there was more rudeness there.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. The other quote I didn't get was when Patrick said, you still got a piece of me with you, which like I think he was trying to say in that moment, like, I still have a piece of you with me, or like whatever. Like he was almost trying to say like you, I think, or he did mean that, but it came across as he meant like you still care about me. But I think he was trying to say
Yeah.
like you have a part of me that'll never come back to me because like it's with you, I think is what he meant. But it
Yeah.
just
I think so.
clunky didn't. So I put for my segment here, and this is the last bit I have on this section, is that if a client said this, like what would I want to work on? And I think Patrick is the one where I like think is really screaming for some support. Like I think he really needs to process this through. He really needs to process through the attraction stuff, like, and work on some self-worth, self-discovery, self-esteem, self-compassion, self-image, confidence. And I think this like slaughtered him, really. It just like made him awful again. Like I think he was coming in with some confidence at the beginning of the show, and it just like really like raised him to the
Yeah.
ground again, which makes sense because it was like his worst fear and his trauma kind of getting reiterated about
Yeah.
attractiveness as an Asian man. So it also brings in important things about racism, internalized racism. And so I deeply like hurt for him that he is like struggling, and then clearly it just like played out in this way that this was like really clunky, and then he was patronizing towards her too and then he's like, do you think I should have the ring, do you think I should have the ring, like that kind of stuff. Just like
It sucks.
sit down, take some deep breaths. So I would want to work with him on those types of things using relational cultural theory, of course, 'cause that's our home base, but also because the racism part would fit nicely with the cultural part of relational cultural theory. And the relational part hopefully would help him with growth fostering relationships to start to develop more self-empathy and get to a place where it felt, safer and more growth fostering to be in relationship.
Mhm. Very well said. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Then we go to Casey. She's being asked about going on dates for a month and a half with Joe. Casey says, we didn't talk till the end of May, trying to clarify the timeline. She told Madison they were Eskimo sisters. And it seems like that was a little more relational, actually. Like, it seemed like
Yeah.
Madison maybe led into that. I don't know. And they had a conversation where Casey complained about how Joe treated her. Casey said that Madison first said, ooh, when I found out. So I don't
He
know
was like, so I don't
why.
know why. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're saying it was like this. Like it sounds like it was a good conversation and there might have been some spinning there. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to jump in because I have two segments already in this like short amount of time. The first one, let's speak on this first though. So my segment for this was something I want people to know more about, or that I thought people would talk more about the next day, which is exactly basically what you said, which is like, I think both can be true. Like, I think what Casey said is true, that she did say that, and that Madison said to her, like, when I first learned about it, I was like, ew. And she probably said it in sort of a playful way. And Casey probably was like, oh, I bet. Like, and they were sort of playful with each other because Madison also isn't going to be a gigantic bag of dicks to her in a bar. Like, that's just factual. So like they both were sort of dancing around this. I think Casey genuinely wanted to like get in with Madison by saying like, look at Joe being such a bag of dicks to me, and so that Madison would join with her in it. And Madison probably did. She probably in the moment was like, really, I should have told you, like, you should have known he was a dick, like, so he probably did join. And at the end, Casey says that Madison said, I'm glad we had this conversation. And I think that's probably true. Like, I think all of those things happened. And I think Madison also was exactly right. That was an uncomfortable fucking conversation. And she didn't like it. She didn't like that it started out with the Eskimo sisters joke. She didn't like that Casey was like, complaining about Joe as if, they're besties about it, when she felt personally harmed by Casey's relationship with Joe, which she made clear this time. She's like, I feel like you two liking each other was a part of the problem here.
Which
So
is,
I just felt like someone,
I thought
yeah,
that
yeah,
was funny because I was like,
yeah.
I don't think that was what the issue was. And I think maybe that goes back to her like maybe earlier in dating experience thing, which is something that you talked about last episode. That felt like an example of that, where it's like, no, I think the issue was that he didn't like you as much as you liked him, and that sucks. And I felt like her nitpicking on Casey was kind of like, it's like, no, he was just being a dick. Like it wasn't about Casey, in my opinion, but I can understand her feelings about it. Yes. Oh, it was about Madison maybe being earlier in dating experience and then being like, Casey, you changed everything. And in my mind, I'm like, if that changes everything, then that's not your man. Like, I don't necessarily think that's true. And it sounds like actually the timeline was off, but I think it kind of ties into that maybe narrative of maybe she was looking for a reason because they did really like each other and it was confusing. And he's just kind of a dick, I think. Yeah. In a lot of ways. He's not just that, but that is a part of his personality that I think he needs to work on. He is not kind.
No, he's not like thinking about women's feelings in the way that he is towards women or the decisions he makes about dating. And obviously Casey made that really clear too, that was her experience of dating him as well. And I totally agree. I think it wasn't the whole thing. I did notice Madison try to be clear, like to clarify. I didn't think it was just that. Like I did think there was other stuff too, but that she thought that was a factor. And I don't think it was either, but it does make it like easier for him to then go home that night and be like, she had googly eyes for me. And then the next day break up with Madison because it is in his mind, like I can do better, or whatever. And it just like a reminder of that. So I can see where it maybe like wet the wheels a little bit, whatever the word is, grease the wheels a little bit for like the speed maybe, but I agree it wasn't the reason that it did. So that was like, this can all be true at the same time, friends. And that was something I wanted people to know more about. And then the other one is my big sociopolitical one. So what happened was Casey's asked about going on dates for a month and a half, and they're like, who was it with? And she's like, it's somebody in this room. And then they're like, who is it? And she's like, it's somebody in the couch in front of me. It's like, oh my God, fuck off. Like, just
stop it.
We all know it's Joe. It's been all over the news. So she's like, I don't know. It's somebody on the couch in front of me. And so then Vanessa goes, Edmund, you dirty dog.
Oh, yeah. That was fucked up.
It's like using the word dog alone is like animalizing him because he's black. So like saying dirty dog is like racist right the fuck there, saying nothing else. And then on top of that, she's like, as if like, oh, we can assume it's you because you're black. You must have also been sleeping with somebody else different than who you were dating in the pods or like in the show. It was so fucking racist. I was like, what the fuck just happened? I couldn't even believe it. I was like, wow, that is so wild. And so it felt like, speaking of dog, a dog whistle moment where it's like, for some people, that must have been so clear that was like super fucking racist. Yeah. And like you said, you noticed it too.
And then I forgot though. And, I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah.
Gross. Yeah. So that was my socio-po. My socio-po, which I started calling my sociopolitical. My socio-po is that it was racist as fuck and implicitly so. And Vanessa is got to work on that, Not cool.
Holy shit. Damn. Yeah. You're right. That was really fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she was like babying him at the end. Yeah. Which I was like, did the producers tell her to do that because they know they like fucked up or something? I was very confused on what was happening. I don't know, but it was weird.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. And I think she also was like trying to help KB in doing it somehow, but like was like enacting this like weird, because what she was doing was actually enacting what KB had been enacting the whole time, which is like being mothered by, being pulled to mother him because of the way that he is. And yeah, she was enacting it for us right there on stage, right in that moment.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And it also was like seen as funny. Like everyone was laughing. And I was like, it's not funny. Like, I don't like it. And poor Edmund was like trying to like play along with it because he doesn't have a choice, But like, yeah, that was fucked.
Poor guy. I really feel for him.
I know.
Not. Ugh.
It's
shitty.
And then, like, we're sort of like pitying him too, I guess. But
which is I don't know, it's not great. And I do think that his mental health is not great. I don't know.
No. Yeah. It's also different to pity and to baby,
Right. That's true. Neither's probably great. He's fine. Yeah. He's clearly fine. Like, it's been a year and he's still doing his thing. But do I think the show should have had him on? No, probably not.
No. And like, I feel like that was accentuated when he said to the teacher, like, this is it. I'm never going to find anybody. Like, this was the last. It's like, oh no. Like, he's also black and white thinking and sort of like done, like catastrophizing. And that just was so sad. I was like, yeah, this is not good for him. That he thinks if it can't get it here, I can't get it anywhere. Yeah.
And then KB, when she forgave him, was when he was like, "You were the best, blah, blah, blah." That was fucked up too. God. Fuck.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough.
So
Great.
one other thing that I had about Joe was when him and Madison were talking about how they went on a couple more dates and made out and like Joe was
Hmm.
crying. That was like the
Hmm.
most vulnerable I felt about the two of them. And I actually like kind
Yes.
of felt for him that it was hitting him that he had loved this person
Hmm.
and that they had gone through something horrible. And he said, like, I don't know what it is about me. I can't feel things in the moment. It often hits me much later. And I would love to work on that with him in therapy because I think it's one thing to be self-aware about that and like name that in the moment with people. But like the way that he was with Madison when they were breaking up was quite cold.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
was validating to hear that he actually cared in some regards, but I also think that there's something there with his like ability to integrate his emotions into his experiences that requires more understanding. And I felt that was therapeutically rich. I kind of
Yes.
leaned in that moment. So that would be something I'd want to work on with him in therapy if I was ever his therapist.
I love that. I love that. And even just the visual of like leaning in, totally. It really was
Yeah,
like a
he's
lean
like,
in moment.
huh.
So true. Yeah, like say more, Nick. I'd love to hear more. Leaning in, exactly. It's most interesting. I wanted to hear more about it. And I love that you would do that with him. I think that's so important. Fabulous. I had one more thing about him as well, and it was actually just that it was something we talked about before because we had talked about him making the body disparaging comments about Madison. We brought that up previously, so I was glad it came up in the episode, and obviously the it didn't come up about Nick and the anti-LGBTQ plus part, which was the part that we actually said they better fucking bring it up. Yeah, we were like, you better. So that's something we said before as well. Was we were like, that needs to come up, and it didn't. So that's the absence. And then this was something we were like, this needs to come up, and it did. So that was you get a point for this. But you get negative 10 points for honestly what might have been. I'm not going to compare it, but it just was like, yeah, a real fucking bummer about that. So I did think that he also, I hear you about him apologizing because I think he did get there. But at first, I also thought something we've mentioned before was his subpar apology because it started out very defensive. He also didn't say I'm sorry until he got to the very
Yeah.
end. And when he did say I'm sorry, it felt a little bit like he was rushing through to be done talking. Like he was sort of like, and I'm sorry, and I take it all back, and I'm deeply sorry. But he said the right things. But I think it was the way he said it felt a little bit dismissive to me. But I do still agree. He did actually apologize and he did try to take a little bit of ownership, which is an improvement for what I'd expect from Joe.
Good try,
Yeah,
Joe. Like
effort.
better,
Effort,
better
sir.
than nothing, which is
Yeah.
what we got with Nick and Annie, which was nothing
Yes.
about the anti-LGBTQ plus conversation. I actually
Mm-mm.
think Nick has apologized. I don't think I've heard anything about Annie apologizing. I could be wrong about
Mm-mm.
that, but it makes me
Yeah.
kind of mad that she got nothing about that. I think that
Yeah.
that could have been a fruitful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What I did put for Nick was I think that maybe he went through some therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was a bit more like reflective and actually said in response to something someone said, he was like, that makes me sad. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like there was,
Yeah.
it felt like he was trying to be present and like recognize what was going on for him in the moment in a way that I was like,
Yeah.
you're trying here and you've looked at yourself and didn't like everything you saw and are trying to change. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. I'm happy for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the emotion laden language is great. That he was able to say, I'm sad. That makes me sad. And he like sort of hesitated, but then was like sad. And that's nice. It's nice to bring us in that way. I did feel like it was quite prepared. I think that I agree, like maybe part of why it felt prepared is because he had done the work watching it. And so that's part of why it was prepared because he actually like felt those things already when he did the work of watching it and maybe going to therapy. It felt like one of the moments that felt really clear to me was that he said, that's something I didn't like about myself and I'm working on it and I did it. So like the way he like sort of rushed through that specific
Yeah.
line too is sort of like, and that's very like, what I would tell somebody to say, frankly, as a therapist, I'd be like, that's something that's important to mention is like, you're going to work on that. That's something you want to think about more, and not say you're like done, you've already fixed it, but to say like, that's the thing, something I would encourage. And so I did feel like in that moment, I was like, that feels like, but then when he got put on the spot and had to like respond to more things in the moment, it did feel a little bit less prepared, a little bit mechanical, I guess is the word for me. So I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know if that's something diagnostic or, whatever, but he was the person I brought up about the social cues. So there's something else diagnostic, maybe not diagnostic, but something else relevant to it that makes sense that might not be that he's actually calculated. It could just be that it's part of his presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't seem super calculated. He did seem prepared, but it didn't come off as calculated to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, I would have to see him in person. But I was glad to see that like when he said that makes me sad, I forget what it was even about, but it felt genuine. And I was like, okay, yes, that's
I think
something.
the chat GPT comment, right? I think it was when she was like, it seems like you've gone to a chat GPT and that you're calculated about women. Like you wanted to do all the pickup lines about women. And he was like, I'm not calculated. Like I'm not trying to be calculated. And the fact that people see me that way makes me sad. Yeah, I think.
That's fair. Yeah. I'll take it.
It was a little harsh. Kate went like a little hard on those. I will say the like love bombing piece like is fair. And then one of the comments he made was like, she said, like you said to me this thing and this thing. The thing he said, I was like, whoa, that is pretty rough stuff, like pretty deep. And then she said, it's not just like accidentally saying I love you, which is his defense. He's like, I just accidentally said I love you because I was feeling it in the moment. Yeah. It's like, whoa, you said a lot. But then she said, one of the ones she said was like, you said you just jumped to the top of my list. He goes, well, that was the first day. It's like, dude, that's worse. That's more worse.
Yeah.
You do better with that. It doesn't help that it was the first day.
Right.
It's funny though. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Good luck, Nick. Good luck, Annie.
Yes.
I wish you well. Annie?
Yes.
Maybe like, I don't know, don't think that being LGBTQ plus is a fad. Like maybe just stay in your lane if that's not if you are not attracted to other genders, it doesn't mean it's a fad for everyone else. So, and the fact
Wildly
that you were
grotesque.
Yeah. I don't like it.
No.
Thank you.
It's like
doesn't mean
really,
I think you're a bad person.
No.
Just means that was a shitty thing to say.
It was a grotesque comment, and it's also totally fine if it's just an ignorant comment, but it's grotesque that we haven't heard it. It's made grotesque by the fact you have not also apologized or acknowledged it, and that the show didn't give you an opportunity to talk about it. And I don't know if that's because like she maybe was like, I don't want to, or like, because she should have been coming in and being like, I want to talk about this, and I want to apologize out front. She barely spoke. She looks really like on Quaaludes, it's just like really like half lid, and then I just was sort of like worried about her, frankly. And she's a hairstylist, and I don't know what's going on with her hair ever. Like, I just don't get it. I just don't know. So, yeah, I feel bad. I think she maybe was just drunk again, honestly. Maybe just a little bit less so, but it felt like that. It was hard not to. But also, by the way, if she was on something like an anti-anxiety, then when she drinks, it would make sense why she gets so blacked out, sort of like sloppy. So
that's true.
Yeah. Maybe she is taking stuff for anxiety, which might be good. Because just anxiety stuff alone also would make you half lit, is my point. Like, that also could look a little bit like drunk on the thing. So is that it for Nick and Annie? I have one thing for Anton and Allie, then I'm over it, but it's up to you about that.
Yes, I am done with Nick and Annie.
Fabulous. My one thing about Anton and Allie was actually a part 2 to the reason why I chose the study I chose, where there was my Sociopo part 2 about racism that was covert in a very subtle language-based way, where it's only because of where it was used that it was racist. So this was about Anton talking about his best friend's girlfriend who's Mexican? ?
Oh, I missed this one.
She is a marginalized race for sure. It came up explicitly, but also her skin tone also is darker. So like there's a colorism issue there as well. And Anton, in describing how she went about talking to Allie about the fact that he was like drinking a lot with his best friend, yada yada, he said Melissa, a woman of color, was sneaky and shady by pulling Allie off to the bathroom. Yeah.
Don't like it.
So, yeah, not good. Another instance where like the word itself has much more meaning. And so sneaky is often used for people of color. It actually has a really not interesting at all, like very dark, but it's something worth knowing about the history of the word being used for people of color is that it was often used for Black people because white people had a fear of enslaved folks organizing behind their backs. And so like they started making this image and stereotype of Black folks as being sneaky and like trying to, organize so that we could avoid that. It was like, stereotyping it in a negative way, obviously. So that's sort of part of the history. And then fast forward to today, and this is like a totally pivot on that, is that one of the ways that sneaky is used in a racist way is actually in sports. And so what they found was AI, but then also actual sports commentators would use different words for athletes that were white than for athletes that were black for the exact same move. And so a move where we would just sort of say like, ooh, that was strategic for a white person, we might say that was sneaky for a black person. And so, right, like, so I can totally see it. I can totally imagine that happening
Yep.
with, football commentators and so forth. And so
Tracks
that's
out.
another way, right?
Checks out. Tracks and
Checks
checks
the fuck out. It
Yep.
does. Tracks, checks the fuck out. I don't like it. It's super racist. And he just totally used it right there, And so I just was like, bummer. This is twice that this could not have been brought up. Like someone couldn't have been like, hey, or even like a title card when they realized this was a problem later. I don't know, something that shows growth about this. So I really was, or take it the fuck out if you really can't fix it, because then you're just reifying it. People are going to keep repeating it. You're reinforcing it, at least, I should say. So, bummer on that. Part two of two. So I am now done with my socio-po.
No, that's excellent. I did not catch that one, so thank you for sharing it, because that sucks. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And again, it's like an interesting AI output. Like it's such an interesting thing that's also still being used in a different way than like some of the history of the word was, and yet still very extremely the stand-in words and the dog whistle effect. Yeah.
I love that dog whistle term. That's awesome.
Me too.
I'm gonna think of. I need to noodle on that more, because I think it's really, really profound.
I know, right? I just found that out recently, and I like it a lot. Actually, tonight, not recently, literally like minutes ago. The dog whistle part. Okay, fabulous. Anything about Anton and Allie, dear friend?
No, I didn't have anything on them. I wish them both well.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry they didn't work out.
Oh, you know what else? This isn't racist because, he's white, and so he's, in the dominant group as far as the colorism goes and so forth. But the thing about his walk from Allie is actually like a little bit troubling to me, just because, and it's not racism, but like maybe racial bias, because he actually walks like Russian people I've seen walk before. Like I had a Russian boyfriend in high school who walked exactly like Anton walks. And so her being like, maybe he can get some help with his walk, I kind of was like, ooh, like, it's sort of, it's like, I don't think I think he's sort of conditioned and based on his race potentially. And maybe I'm completely wrong and it's based on his flip-flop wearing or something, which is totally fair too. But it looked familiar to me. So at least I know it's possible. It's an anecdotal noticing on my part, but I feel like it's possible that that's not something he could easily change or notice in himself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate the anecdote. And then the fact that they showed them after the credits rolled was weird to me. I was like, what are you trying to say with this? I was like, what? Do you think anyone's thinking about them? I wasn't thinking about them. Why does this matter? Are we going to do this for all the couples? And then when it was just them, I was confused. I was like,
they're trying to show his toes. They were like, look at his flip flop wearing and his toes, like, 'cause his toes were like right in her face. It's like, I don't care. We didn't need to see her see his toes.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, agreed.
It's weird.
But instead, KB and Edmund were actually of interest at the end, and there was a lot to be said and had there. So this is how we'll close out our episode. Tell me what you got for KB and Edmund.
I think all I had was another, like, things we've mentioned previously. We were talking about Edmund's mental health, the dynamic between them, how there was sort of a mother-child dynamic, all that stuff. I think it played out in this episode. We were just talking about this, but the way that Vanessa was, like, talking to him was very, like, mothering. And I wasn't sure if Netflix was, like, telling her to do that, because they're like, this maybe was like a vulnerable person that we brought onto the show. I couldn't quite tell. But I don't know. I felt frustrated with that conversation on both sides. And I also feel a lot of empathy for both of them. So that's kind of where I land. But I'm so curious to hear your thoughts too. Yeah,
totally. And another part of that is like the kids' gloves that he was given around the PMSing comment, because that was really sexist. It's like, friends, that is not good at all. And everyone just sort of like Madison had the most reaction, because she was sort of like, trying to help KB, but KB was sort of like, I'm not even going to take that. I'm not even going to go there with that. Like, don't need to. And I think that's of interest. That's a kids' glove thing. It also was him dismissing what she's saying by diverting, and he did that a lot. And that's what she's saying, is that he was dismissive, and he was doing it and then saying, I didn't do that. And so like that was contradictory. I have one more. I have one was I spotted therapy, because I think KB taking out her notes because she has a bad memory felt a little bit maybe like a therapist being like, just bring notes. Like if you're having a hard time, like I feel like I would say that. It's like, people shouldn't judge you for like wanting to have a backup for your, and I thought that I didn't blame her for doing it. But then the thing I wanted to spend more time on, just still brief, was about Edmund's crying and the idea of manipulation. And maybe this would also be like what I wish people knew more about, which is that emotional manipulation technically is just like when we try to change the other person's emotions without them knowing it. Like we're trying to have an effect on their emotions without directly saying, I want you to cry, like, which we wouldn't, right. It's is the idea of trying to be able to affect another person's emotional base without them knowing or being part of that. And so I get what she's saying, where she's sort of saying like, what would happen is when he was being held accountable, he would cry, so that then I was forced to take care of him. And I think she was missing that part. I think she needed to say, it invited me to take care of him instead of holding him accountable. And so she right? She got the first leg.
I think that's the missing link.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was the dynamic that our relationship was kind of founded on, which was then like very complicated and like difficult. That is a difficult thing to navigate when you're trying to hold someone accountable, and it's hard to know how to. Totally.
Yes, and they also try to get out of it. It's sort of like emotional or spiritual bypassing. Like it's like bypassing essentially. It's like now I have to focus on this instead of like in this case it's not racism, but like instead of the racism, I'm worried about the spiritual part, whatever. I will say too, this comparison is like sticky a little bit, but I think it's like part of what helped me understand fully what KB was saying was thinking about the idea of white woman tears. And this idea that like when we're in a group setting and a white woman is held accountable for her, like talking about gender, when we're talking about race, oftentimes a white woman will start crying and be like, I'm not racist. Like, I hate that you think I'm racist. And then it all becomes about her crying. And like the whole room is now trying to take care of her. And the person of color who tried to hold her accountable is now going to look like the bad guy if they try to hold her accountable further. Like now it has to look like, okay, we're all going to be like, are you okay? How do we fix this? How do we make this a safe place? Which is why that also gets a lot of stickiness around the idea of a safe space, because it's like, should it be all about white women having a safe space? No, it should be about challenging ourselves to do better, learn more, and to hold ourselves accountable. And so when I thought about it that way, I was like, right, like that's some things that KB may very well have seen in so many settings where it's like, you are literally starting to cry so that I don't hold you accountable. And therefore, like, that's a way of manipulating the situation. And that's exactly what that is. And so I can see her sort of applying that to Edmund and not knowing how to, like, add the part. Because you wouldn't say, like, and it is also in White Women Tears, it is also about taking care of them. But for KB, that's where she stopped. Like, she wouldn't actually be pulled to take care of a white woman crying, because she'd be like, I don't have to do this. Like, that's a you thing, you know? And so when it's with Edmund, who's her partner, she is sort of pulled to take care of him. And so that makes it difficult for her, because then she's like, stop. She literally was like, stop. Like, even when he was doing it, you know? And so I think the thing is that she stops before she gets to the part where she realizes that part of what she's saying stop about is that she doesn't want to take care of him. She wants to hold him accountable. And so I think for other people to understand what she's saying, because he's like, I'm not trying to be manipulative. It's like, right, I also don't think it's conscious. Like, I think it's subconscious, just like white women tears are subconscious. Like, they don't realize they're just, you know, bypassing. And so I think similarly with him, he's not trying to be, but that doesn't mean he's not. And I think in this case in particular, it's like he's trying to get out of being held accountable. So that is manipulative. He's trying to stop her emotions from being valid, frankly. You know, he's like, I don't want you to think they're valid because I don't want to have to deal with that. And so, like, instead, I'd like you to have to take care of me.
What's complicated, I totally agree with you. And I think, unfortunately, Black women are like always the most marginalized. So it's like a dynamic
at the intersection.
Totally. What I struggle with is like the ableism piece, and the power dynamic that was present with them from the beginning feels so complicated and convoluted that it's just, I just leave it and I'm like,
I know.
I don't know what to do with all this.
It's tough. Because I don't think saying, no, stop what you're doing is the way to do it. I don't. I see why that's her strategy. And I also am so glad she told us that she tried to tell Edmund, please stop getting me upset before we film so that I don't look like the stereotype of being an angry Black woman. I'm so glad she shared that, because that is what was happening. And it explains why she went into the party for the rodeo trying not to tell him what she was upset about. She was trying to let it go so that she could just enjoy the party and not have that come out that way. So that explained a lot.
Exhausting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, just so much labor, emotional labor. And I still think, like, I also get her instinct to be like, stop that. Don't tell me you love me. You need me. Da-da-da. But she's like mocking him when she does it. And then she's also saying, like, and just telling someone to stop a thing when they don't know what they're doing wrong isn't going to help either, And so, like you're saying with the ableism part, it's like slow it down for him, where you might want to say something like, I understand that right now it feels upsetting that I'm trying to point out something about you that doesn't feel good and doesn't feel like it's really you. And also, when you're telling me like you love me and you need me, I love you and I love you and I love that you're saying that. And also in this moment, I don't want to talk about that part. Can we pause on that and stay here for a second? Just sort of like invite him to like see it both ends. Like, yes, what you're saying is true. I appreciate that. How about this part too? And sort of like dance around a little bit. And I think it's hard to do when you're activated and you're feeling strong emotions. So I also get why that's not the go-to. But yeah. So also, by the way, that's the part with the white women tears where it's like, if that's her history of seeing it that way, if she's seeing that most often with white women tears, I don't blame her for being like, just stop. It's like, she shouldn't have to, right? She shouldn't have to take care of the white women doing that in a space. And so I get why her reaction would maybe, or I see where maybe part of her reaction to him might be informed by a different dynamic that is similar, where she should not have to slow it down, and try to talk it through. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, they just weren't a match. And I really hope he finds his match. I hope she finds her match. Like, I think they both, to me, seem like people who are, I don't want to say good people, because I think everyone has the capacity to be good and bad and all the things. But I hope so. I'm rooting for both of them. I really am.
Yeah, same. And then you brought up the point that she forgave him when he said, I never would have had someone like you if it weren't for the show. And also, I know that was really rough. And also it kind of felt like a similar thing. Because he wasn't really saying, before that, he wasn't really giving what I would want if I were KB for him to be saying. And so then he said that, where it's suddenly pitying him. And I pitied him too. I was like, oh my God, poor Edmund. I literally was like, oh my God, poor Edmund. But also part of me was sort of concerned on KB's behalf, because I sort of was like, this is kind of the same issue, where it's sort of now we're all focused on pitying him instead of him actually saying something that would be him holding himself accountable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was awful that then she's like, okay, now I want to hug you, because I get what she was doing. It's sort of like she was falling for it in some ways, I guess, too, enacting it with him. But yeah,
that's how it felt to me in the moment. But it's possible I was missing the piece of it too, whereas now we're focused on him, and I don't know, it felt messy.
Okay, then I think my thing was still saying what I it's still saying that she fell for it. He was saying he was using the comment that he made is very pitiable, and so by doing that, now the focus is on I feel so bad for him, because it's true. I also felt that way. And so I'm saying her then forgiving him in that moment was sort of her falling for what he wanted. So sort of giving him what he wanted. So I don't know, I don't want you to agree with that. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's goes with what I'm saying. So I don't know if that goes with what you're saying.
I think where I landed in that was then going back on the power dynamic too. Because then where I went with it was oh, KB's feeling better because she's feeling like she's in this above
being
place,
elevated.
Which I don't know if that was fair, because I think your piece about the manipulation too is totally fair.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And her eyes watered. And I also saw her wonder, I saw her sort of wobble a bit before she was oh, and so I wonder if there was she didn't know if, because at that point we're expecting them to wrap it the fuck up, so she's not going to be that's not helpful, so it's what does she really have? Yeah. So I think she kind of had to go in with it too. And I actually appreciate that, because I thought the way they ended was perfectly nice. And I do think it was another example of what she was talking about, but a subtler one, much subtler, and still a kind of beautiful moment that came from it. And then also, there was one more thing I was just going to say about that. She also, I think, so I think, right, because either way, all of those things are also true. I think it's, again, all these things can be true at the same time, because it's also her in a power position. And even just the fact that she might have made the decision, let me just let it go and give him a hug, is also coming from a power position. It's still in each of those cases, I was glad she said I wouldn't have done this with anyone else. And I think that's true. I think that she was that was the right person for her. And certainly she was the right person for him, and maybe even orchestrated as such. But I did think that they had a nice friendship that came out of it.
Yeah.
Albeit a power dynamic one, a power dynamic rich friendship.
Yes, indeed. Indubitably.
Yes. Okay, fabulous. that was the reunion, friends. We're going to try to get this out as soon as possible. After the reunion came out on Wednesday, we recorded it on Thursday, so hopefully you'll have it soon. But if not, don't worry about it because you'll have it soon after. And then also you can find our video. The half version of the video will be on YouTube in a few days after this is posted. You'll find that on YouTube, but you'll also find the full version of the video around that same time on our Patreon. If you want to go pay $5, measly $5 on our Patreon for a month, per month, $5. Also, if you like become a paying member soon, you'll probably also get like a free year out of it because we're giving that as a promo for some early adopters. And thank you to the free members that are joining. That's also awesome because you are getting the benefit of getting our audio episodes the night before it otherwise comes out on all the databases. And let me also say that whatever. What is the other thing I'm missing about that? Oh, so let me tell you what our Patreon handle is. That might help. So this is all at Patreon, which is patreon.com/realitytest. You can also go to patreon.com and then go in their search bar. But in that case, you have to put the @ symbol and then reality test. And then you'll find us. We're teal and purple looking in our icons and so forth. You also might find us on types of social medias such as Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. All of those have the same handle of @realitytestpod. If you go to Instagram, you'll see it's the same handle, but you add cast at the end. So it's really Reality Test Podcast. That is it. That's a little bit more of a mouthful than I've noticed before, but that is that. And then you also can find us on our separate handles still, which is @DrKpods for moi, @DrRayPods for toi, which is for Dr. Ray. Just Doctor Ray. That's my French for you.
Impressive.
But was meeting you for you. And then I will say also I do have the other handle still too, sort of for TikTok at drdr.realitytv, REALITV. And you'll also get us on email if you like at realitycheckpodding, PODDING @gmail.com.
Indeed. And don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, tell all your friends. It really does make a huge difference. And, $5 measly a month would make a big difference for us.
Exactly. Maybe we'll pay our sound guy. And hi to our friends that learned from their friends. Tell your friends too. And we will see all y'all next session. Bye.